part two. Excuse me. You're gonna hear me snorting on this video a bit. I'm sorry, I got a really bad allergies today, so you're gonna hear me snorting. Sorry about that ahead of time. But anyway, here we go on how to tear down and do a thorough cleaning on your Iwata airbrush. I'm going to use an HP-CS as an example. If you have the HP, I think it's a BC, whatever the others are, they're actually a little simpler than this one. This one's probably the most complicated brush they've got. So the video is going to take about, I'm guessing ahead of time, about 25-30 minutes-ish. It won't take you this long. It won't take you this long to actually do that. It's just I'm talking you through it, so I move slow and everything. It will realistically take you about in the whereabouts of 10 minutes to do this. So anyway, let's get right into that. Thanks for tuning in. All right, Rebel Rooster modeling viewers, let's take it apart here. This is an Iwata HP-CS. I have used this. This is February. I last cleaned this, I believe it was January of last year. So 13 months of use without a teardown. So let's take it apart here. First I'm going to do is take the cap off, the cup cap. Then I'm going to remove the back. And then I'm going to loosen the nut here. And what I do usually, I don't know if it makes a difference or not, but it's just one of those things I do. Maybe I'm fooling myself, but I put a drop of lacquer thinner down in here, because any paint that's here is going to be loosened up by it. That's going to let, because sometimes your needle's going to want to stick, and instead of yanking it really hard, it comes right out. So I'm going to take the needle out, and then what I do, and I strongly suggest you do the same, is get a little piece of tape, fold it over itself a little bit. Now your needle can't go rolling away from you, because you'll be amazed how easy it is, not only to let that happen, but to lose your needle. So now keep your needle from doing that. Then I'm going to take this little feller out, and I'm going to put him in a mixing cup, because I will lose that. And I'm going to do the same thing with the front. Now you're going to see right here, two sets of ridges. These are going to kind of stick sometimes, so you might have to get a pliers and hold this here, or maybe hold it with the airbrush wrench back here at the nut. But these tend to stick together. But because I take this off all the time, I don't have a problem with that. So I'm going to take this off the crown cap. I'm going to put it in the cup. And now I'm going to take the front of this off. And it's a little bit too tight. If you have a smaller tool, it's a good idea to use it. But since the needle's out, I'm not horribly concerned. I'm just going to enter it from the bottom so I can see that I'm not going to hit this part. And I'm going to loosen this piece. There we go. And take it off. And then I'm also going to put it in the cup. Now we see, where's my point and pencil? There we are. This is the I'm not sure what they call it, but I call it the nozzle. It's what the needle passes through. Now, this is easy to mess up, so let's be really careful with that. We're going to get our airbrush wrench. I'm coming from the back forward so I don't bump the front of it. It's slotted just like the wrench is. And I'm going to find that slot carefully. And then I'm going to take it off. And just like you auto mechanics, righty-tighty, so turning it to the right, clockwise tightens it, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, turn to the left, that loosens it. Just let it, get it loose, and then I do the rest of it with my fingers. That way I don't lose it out of the wrench when it finally breaks free. And here it is. It's a tiny little feller. And these usually come with a washer, a little red washer that goes in here, or a black one. I take it off, and I'll show you why later. And then I very carefully put this in its own cup so it doesn't bang against anything, and I just roll it in there so it doesn't fall in the cap. A little overcautious, but it's better than breaking something and wishing you didn't. So I'm going to take the airbrush wrench, I'm going to take this part off, and I'm going to turn it like this, and you'll see why right now. I'm going to put it in its in the cup with the other parts. This here sometimes will be stuck really hard. Other times it will come right out for you. This one's a little stiff. So what I'm going to do with it is I'm just going to put a little drop of lacquer thinner here to loosen up that paint. Let me get a pipe bit. I'm gonna do that off camera. Okay. Now I'm gonna bring it back over here, and what I'm gonna do, and I usually do this with the edge of my tweezers because it won't damage it. The tweezers will bend first, so I'll do this part. See where it doesn't close all the way? I put it in here, and then I just kind of move it back and forth. Very careful not to touch, not to get this part of it. You'll bend it. And it's loose, and I'm gonna take it out. And this doesn't always stick on you. It's just if it, I haven't cleaned this thing in 13 months, but it was still easy enough to come apart with the little bit of lacquer thinner. Put that in the cup with the other things. Sometimes you might have a washer here. Again, I'll take mine off and I'll show you why, when I put it back together. Then I'm gonna take this right here and I'm gonna loosen this. Now when I put it together, I just finger tighten it. I don't use a wrench or nothing like that. I just finger tighten it, and that's plenty. I'm gonna take this out. Suggest you tilt anything anytime you're taking something apart, kind of tilt it up, because there's other parts like that spring you see trying to get away with it. Sometimes the spring will stick in there and then it'll fall out like so, and you won't even hear it. And then you put your brush together. Wait a minute, why ain't it working? So put this here. I'm gonna put the spring here. You take this out and pull up the trigger. Trigger comes out. And then lastly, I take off the quick connector. I also do this with a hand under it because you do want to leave a washer seal in here. It's staying in there for me, as you can see inside there. Make sure it's not loose. And then I've got it all disassembled here, ready to start cleaning. Okay, so the next thing I start to doing is I get my lacquer thinner, get the cap off, set it over here, and I get a separate paper towel and I fold it in half. And what paper towels will almost always do is kind of fold themselves. You have a choice of putting one or the other. Usually what I do is I fold it over so that it kind of tilts, it kind of cradles. That way if parts start rolling away, they're gonna roll into the middle instead of off to the sides and getting lost. Just a little tip. It's unimportant. It's just one of those things that I do. Then I get another paper towel for cleaning and my Q-tips handy. And I go to work cleaning. First thing I do is I get a little tiny piece of paper towel here. And I put some lacquer thinner on it. I don't suggest you do this barehanded, but I'm kind of dumb like that. So anyway. And I just fold it over the needle, and I twist the needle. You see that tape turning? And as I just move it back as I do that. And I do it again. And I always do it from back, pulling it so the tip is coming in. Because if you try to do it the other way, you risk bending that tip. And then I put the needle over here. Let's see how dirty that is. Not terrible, but dirty enough, huh? All right. And then I just go to the next piece. And there's no important order you do it on. And I just use that same one. I just fold it over itself so it's not too dirty. I start wiping the insides. And then what I do is I get myself another cup handy. Get some more lacquer thinner. And whether or not you need to do this, I don't know. It's just one of those things, again, that I do it because I do it. I don't have any science behind it. I just do it because I do it. And I run a little lacquer thinner. I put that little cap thing back on there. Not the cap, but you know, the little thing that screws on there for the needle, to secure the needle. And the only reason I do that is because it keeps me from spilling so much. Then I put it like this. Turn it over, and into the empty cup, I shoot a little lacquer thinner through there. And then I get one of my very tiniest brush, dip it in lacquer thinner, and I run it through there. Oops, got to loosen that so it can fit. And I don't pull it out, I don't pull it back through, I just run it through the end. And let's see if that makes any difference. Well, as you can see, it's pretty dirty. So how about we do that again? A little more lacquer thinner through it. Again, I'm really terrible about chemicals and stuff. I don't suggest you do this barehanded. Wear some gloves, and you don't have to have whatever problems come with lacquer thinners and stuff like that getting in your skin. Let me see how it looks here. Oops. Great way to get lint on your brush, dumb bass. But I'll just get it off of there. There we go. Let me see if it got dirty. Okay, it didn't get dirty, so I know that's good now. And I'm gonna do this to get all that schmutz off of there, because I wasn't thinking. There's that dude walking his dog in my front yard, and I'm more concerned that he's not letting his dog take a dump in my yard than I am paying attention to my work here. So, anyway, and there's my cup of lacquer thinner that I shot through there. I'm going to consider that dirty, so I'm going to toss that out. And now this thing's done. Next part, there's really not much to do with the spring. It doesn't touch anything, so I just put it over here as cleaned. Then I'm going to get the trigger. Get myself another little piece of paper towel. Tiny little one here. Put a little lacquer thinner on it. And I'm going to wipe this little guy off. And let's see if that was dirty. If I spill a lot of paint, I'm a little clumsy sometimes. So let's see if that got dirty. Yeah, a little bit. Not too bad. I'll get my little brush here again. Get some lacquer thinner on it. And I'm going to go through the middle, because that's where the needle passes through, right? I want that nice and clean. I'll set that here. And what I'm going to do is just get a little bit, tiny little piece of paper towel like so. Fold it small enough to fit in there. Make it wet with lacquer thinner. And I'm just going to push that through there. Like so. If I can get it to go in there. There we go. I'm going to pull that through. Nice and clean. All right. And I'll get my air can and blow that out. Like so. Make it clean. There we are. That part's clean. Now, the carrier, I don't know what you call it. If it was a rifle part, I could tell you, but I get a Q-tip for this. I get that wet with lacquer thinner, because this is a pretty big passage. And then, without dropping it again, butterfingers, margarine fingers, whatever you eat. And you can see that's kind of dirty in there too, so I'll do that again. There, now it's nice and clean. And I'm going to get my air can and I'm going to blow that to get all this, any threads, anything I would have got in there, out. Next, sorry for the snorting, I got a kind of an allergy day going here. This little thing here, I'll just do this. I don't use the lacquer thinner on that, that's kind of strong. So I just put a little bit of 99% IPA on there. I just run it around, and I don't think you're going to get anything much in here but dust. Because you want to be really careful with this. This rubber seal is kind of, you know, it doesn't have a whole lot of chemical integrity. And somehow that managed to get a little dirty, but there we are. Threads are good and clean, so I'll just leave that like it is. But that was my last Q-tip. Let me get another one. Okay. That's good to go. I'm going to put that one over here on the clean side. I did see one more spot of dirt I missed on that trigger though. There we go. Then, that brings me to the other small parts that I'm very carefully going to pour out. And I'm going to do the same thing with these. I'm going to Q-tip them, do the threads, and then work my way forward from there. And front and back. See, it gets pretty dirty in there, see? And do that till it's clean. Being very careful not to damage it. Then I'm going to clean the threads here as well. And you can do this with a paper towel if you want, just that It's just that this, I can tell by sight, this is really pretty clean, so I'm just gonna leave it be. And you got a few holes in here. They're really hard to see on the camera, but right in here, let me use my pointing Q-tip. Inside there's some holes. Be careful not to clog those up. Make sure those are good and clear. So what you'll probably want to do is turn it upside down. I don't know if you can see it. I hope you can. There's 3 holes you can see through there. Make sure those are all clear. And then that little guy is clean. I'm going to put that over here. A crown cap. This thing is really easy. I think I showed you that earlier. I just run the Q-tip through there on both sides. And that's good and clean now. Bye, Q-tip. And then the last is this and that tiny one that go in there, and they're going to get their own little section. So let me push pause for now. Now, something I'd like to point out to you is that you're going to see, because of the good thinning ratios, you get the flashlight, help you out, you can see down in there. Not too much is really dirty, and you see there's some bare brass. I've had this brush for over 10 years, so it's worn out, and you can see the scratch marks from where I got a little firm before with it, and I think that was from something metal back before I knew better. But anyhow, and you can see the front of it here. It's looking pretty nice and clean. The inside, if I can angle that in there, looks pretty decent. The needle's a good telltale on whether or not you're doing things right. And you can see, I don't need the flashlight for this, but I do want to use my pencil to help it focus. And you can see just a little bit. Let me tilt the light over at it. There's not a whole lot of paint on there. There's a little bit. If I can get this thing to focus. Probably not, because it's an iPhone, and it's an old iPhone at that. But there's a little bit of paint here, but not a whole lot. So the thinning ratios were going good for me. And there's really not much else to get dirty everywhere else in this thing. Sometimes if you spill, it gets up in the trigger, and you can see that right here. I got a little bit of paint here where I spilled. And down on the paper towel, you can see some loose stuff that broke free when I took it apart. About 13 months, and I use this thing pretty heavily. You can see if you take care of it, it's not going to be a big job to clean it. Okay, so let me just shake the camera for a split second while I turn this back on. Okay, so we're back to the complicated pieces, and that's going to be this one here and this little guy here. This one's a very fragile, very delicate, and this one's pretty tough, but it's got an odd shape to clean. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little guy here, and I'm going to just soak it in some lacquer thinner for a little while I work on the other one. Now, I hear some of you gasping and drawing your breath in there, but remember, I took the seal off of this, so I don't care. I'm just going to let that soak in lacquer thinner to loosen up what's in there. And the problem we have with this one is the weird shape. You want something wide enough to clean the hips, you know, right here, but not so fat that we can't pass it through here. So this is actually going to be a couple stages, and that's where these brushes are really handy, of different sizes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this one, and again, keep it really straight, because remember, there's metal at the front of this. So don't put it in there crooked, keep it really straight. So I'm going to give this a little soak of lacquer thinner here, and I'm just going to push this in without forcing it, and I'm just going to twist this thing around here and take it out, wipe this, and you can see it's pretty dirty. So I'm going to give this thing some more lacquer thinner, some clean lacquer thinner here. And you can see, even in the cup, I hope you can see, even in the cup, there's all kinds of pieces of crap in there. So I'm going to do this again, keeping it straight till it stops without forcing it. And I'm just going to twist it around. Take it back out, and look at this. You can see there's a lot of stuff in there. And that's going to be the first stage. Okay. I'm going to get my air can and hold this firmly and shoot it through. Now, the next stage is going to be the second size down brush. And I'm going to soak this with some lacquer thinner. This one I could push in a little further. You can see it's just coming out the tip. And I'm going to twist that around. I'm not going to pull it all the way through, but I am going to twist it around some more. And you're going to see I got a little more dirt coming out. And when you remove it, rather than just pulling it out, I would twist it along with the way the brush is threaded. That makes it easier on it to take it out. And you can see there's a lot more crap in there again. And now I'm going to take some lacquer thinner and shoot it through this into the cup. You can see more crap in the cup there. Now I'm going to take the smallest one, and this one I'm going to pull all the way through it. I'm going to twist it as I thread it through, all the way through. And that's going to be kind of like the final cleaning of it. And that's all it's going to really need. This should come pretty clean now. And it's got a little bit more, so what I'll do is, I'll do that one more time. Push it through straight, then twist it all the way. Now the brush is coming out clean. I'm going to shoot the lacquer thinner through it. So this is all I'm doing. I'm doing that there. Okay, squeezing it, shooting it through into the dirty cup. And then I'll take a good firm grip on it and I'll shoot the air can through it. And that's done. And it's carefully going in there. So you can see it's got some crap in there, not a whole lot. And that's going to take care of most of those. Now I got just this one little guy left in here, remember him. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to take a very carefully, grab the tweezers very carefully and set it down right here. Now this, I don't really like to stick anything in here, in this little guy. So what I do is, very carefully, I just rip off a little piece of paper towel, and I just roll it in my fingers. You always had that kid in grade school who was rolling buggers in his fingers. Pretend you're that kid today. And I'm going to put a little lacquer thinner on it. Roll it again. And I'm just very carefully going to roll this into there without pulling it through. You can see, I think you can see it. Can you see how dirty that is? Let me see if I can zoom it in for you. There, now you can see it. That's dirty, see? So, I'm going to do that. I thought I was going to only do that once. I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to get the other end, do the same thing. Roll it again. And then get it in there, and it looks like that's going to do it. Toss that away. Now, one more thing I'm going to do. I'm going to get a toothpick, like so, and my pipette, and I'm going to fatten up the front of this pipette with that toothpick a little bit without breaking it, or your tip stuck in there. And then, once that's been fattened, you can even do this with the front of your tweezers if you want. Make it good and fat for a second. And then I'm going to very carefully screw this into there. Not force it, but screw it. There we are. You see that? See what I did here? And then I'm just going to squeeze the lacquer thinner through it. Into the cup. Into the cup, because if it falls out and shoots out, guess where it's going? It's going where I can get it. And you can see there's some crap in there still, huh? So, I'll squeeze a little more of the lacquer thinner through there. Drag it around while squeezing that last little bit on this paper towel here. See? There's still just a hair coming out, so let me draw some lacquer thinner up into it. Shake it and squeeze it again. Squeeze as I trail it out. There's still a little bit, but that could be on the outside, so let me just try this with a Q-tip. Very carefully. just spin it along the edge, and that is on the outside. You can see on the Q-tip it's coming from the outside. So let me wipe that clean. See, that's pretty dirty. See? So a little more. Get that outside nice and clean. Now we got it. Drop a little more lacquer thinner, shoot it through into the cup, and then trail it along here, carefully on an angle, not straight up and down, and it's not doing anything else. And then very carefully unscrew it while keeping a good pinch so you don't lose it. And then what I'm going to do is set it back in its own little cup. And I'm going to fill that with some 99% IPA and leave it be for now. Dump out this dirty lacquer thinner from the other one. And now we're just down to the easy part, the exterior, which a lot of people say, don't worry about that. And, you know, maybe you don't have to, but this front piece especially I do worry about. What I do is I get a little lacquer thinner again, like with the others, and I just put it in there, and I twist it into the cavity. I take it out, and lo and behold, look at that. It's dirty. So, again, I'm just going to get the threads and twisting it carefully in and out. Still pretty dirty. And what I'm going to do now is the rest of it. I don't want to go too far into there with the lacquer thinner because depending on your airbrush, your seals might get damaged. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this with 99% IPA for the rest of it because I'm going to be sticking that Q-tip in farther. Twisting it so it can get in there. Pushing it till it stops. And then twisting it the other way as I take it out. Even though it's not threaded, it's just good practice. Let's see, it's way up in there. See? There's still more way up in there. Now, let me see here if I can get it to come clean. Getting there. There we are. And I got barely a thing in there. Get one more Q-tip in there. There, whoops, well, that's not good. Now I got the cotton stuck in there, which actually is kind of good that it happened, because that's one of the very few things. Some of you might have seen these rods that come on a keychain. Use with caution. And from the front, with caution, I'm going to push that cotton out, and it's gone. So, that purchase was justified. Then I'm going to take this, and I'm going to shoot some IPA down in here. And you can see I've still got junk in here. You can see it against the white background. See it when I stir the cup around? I've still got crap coming out. But instead of using the Q-tip this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that brush. This one, this side here. And I'm going to push it all the way through. Actually, you're too big. Let me use the small one. I tend to err on the side of caution and get one that's a little smaller than I really need. So, and don't jam them, just twist them. If you can't get them in by twisting them gently, you've got something that's too big to pass through there. And I'm just going to keep pushing it through until it gets to the other side. I might have taken that off the camera, and then you can see I got it pushed through right here. Let me get this flashlight for you. You see it down in there? And then I'm going to pull it through. See if it comes clean. It does. So now this part's done. One more quick squirt of alcohol down there. And the air can. Finish it off. Now you can get yourself in trouble in here pretty easily if you try to force things. Don't force them. And it looks like I got it pretty clean down there. And just for good measure, I'm going to swab a Q-tip around the cup bottom and make sure there's nothing else behind in there. You see? Yep, we're good to go. And for good measure again, because I'm kind of a clean freak when it comes to airbrushes, because remember I told you, a clean brush will take care of you. And it will. There we are. All right, that alcohol evaporates quickly. That part's done. And then we're down to wiping this one. And I'll just do that at the exterior at the end. So, well, let me push pause so this file ain't too big. I'll do a little cleanup and then we'll get to the reassembly. Okay, you're probably noticing that the paper towel looks different. Excuse me, that's because it is. I don't want any of that old crap I cleaned up to go back in any of the parts. Let me just show you something really quick. That little front nozzle piece we were talking about earlier. I told you Nice to Know or one of these little airbrush tools here. Now you really got to be careful with this. If this little guy ain't coming clean and you're doing it over and over, you might have bigger pieces that need to be broken up. A couple very careful. Don't push too far. You'll totally ruin this nozzle, and these are like 18 bucks. Other thing is this is a very sharp tip. So you can kind of see the shape of it now that it's focusing. It's not just a needle, it's actually flattened. See? The bottom half, it's like a bayonet on the bottom of a rifle. So it goes in here. And what I do is I just put it on there, in there. And I let it fall onto it where it's done falling. And then I just gently twist it. And you'll get the bigger pieces of crap, which you can see right there on my finger, coming out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it drop in that alcohol again, or lacquer thinner, depending on how dirty it is. And then I'm going to take this piece again, very carefully without poking myself, just let it fall onto it, gently twist it. It'll ream the sides. You can see I still got crap on there, see? So, let's do it again. Because this thing is the last passage your paint's going through. You really want this clean. Let's see if the third time's the charm here, huh? Very gently. Nothing there. Good. We are golden. This is a great tool for that purpose, but man, you got to be careful with it because it's very easy. You know, the front of that nozzle is, let's just way, 1,000 times magnify it. This is your nozzle. Here's your needle, and it goes through there. If you push too hard, anything through there, instead of having a tight seal, it's going to get bent, and then you're going to have this. And when you look at it from the front, instead of having a nice tight seal around it to where the needle draws back and the paint can come out like that, you're going to have it bent like this so that paint is always coming out of it. Or it'll come out one side instead of a nice centered like that, okay? So be really careful of that. And where you see that problem mostly is like during the cleaning that I just showed you, and also when people are putting the needle back in. That's where you get the problem. So be really careful with that. So let me lay the parts out for reassembly and we'll wrap this up. Okay, now that we're going to put it together, it's a good time to inject a couple things. First, Sorry for the snorting. I just got bad allergies today. Anyway, the first is a lot of people will, well, not a lot, but some people will have you lay out the pieces as you took it apart because it makes it easier to put it together at the end. But honestly, this is how you lose parts. That's why I use these cups. But I am going to lay it out in the order we're putting it together. Another very important thing is I mentioned that I remove seals from things, and you know, I don't worry about gas because I use beeswax. Beeswax is available at any of those old lady craft stores in the candle making section. Just make sure it's beeswax. It's an excellent sealant. But because I'm going to heat things up to make that get in there, I'm going to be using a lighter. So I've had lacquer, thinner, and alcohol in these cups. I'm getting these cups way over here away from where I'm burning things, and I'm covering up my lacquer, thinner, anything that's flammable. A lot of garages and models are burned up because of that. Not mine, but you know. Something else for you guys who buy the Chinese, those cheap knockoff airbrushes, which I really don't, you know, that's a whole nother subject. I'm not really a fan of it. You think you're saving money, but you know, the long and short is you're not. But something that'll help you guys out if that's what you do is I get some really fine sanding. Like I've got this 12,000 paper, and you can start at like, you know, 6, 8, 10, 12 and work your way up. And you can kind of always moving backwards so the needle doesn't get flattened out while you do this. Always moving backwards and spinning the needle. If you polish up your airbrush needle, that's going to help you out a lot with your finish. Now you could fold it over like this if you want, but the problem with that is you tend to put too much pressure on one side and the needle gets bent in the process. So I just lay it flat and do a lot of drags. And I spin it as I do it so I get the whole thing. So I move it back as I spin it, and that really will help you out a lot. Just make sure that you run your fingers through it to get that any sanding dust off of that. All right, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get my beeswax ready, and I'm gonna start assembling things. And generally what I do is I do the front first. So I take the airbrush, I turn it up like this, and I put this in here. Oops, actually, back the horse up just a second. I take this little needle, this little nozzle, and I carefully screw it in here. But before I do that, I need a seal, right? So I get myself a toothpick and my beeswax. I scrape a little beeswax free. This isn't the easiest stuff in the world to work with, but you know. And some of you might kind of take your lighter, which here it is, and you light it up and make it soft, but it also turns it black. So I just break some free, put up my hand. Then like that kid in grade school that rolled boogers, I just roll it nice and long. And this is where you lose things. So again, be really careful with your grip on this thing. And on the side, be careful not to get it inside the thing. I just wrap that oblong booger around it. I get my tweezers. Very carefully. Put it where that indent is, where the wrench goes. You can do this before or after. I do it both. And then just long enough to soften it. And careful not to get that flame too close, because you can, if your lighter's hot enough, you can mess up your airbrush parts with it. And then I reassemble this. But I'm going to do that with my hands, because that tweezer is guaranteed to help me lose this thing. And what I usually do is just hold the small piece and spin the big one. And you can see a little bit of wax is going to fall off. I just get it back in there. Don't shove it. I just kind of mash it in there just about like that. Then I get my tweezers and I hold the big part. I just close the tweezers and I put it over it like this. Hold it sideways, lighter up again. Not enough to burn your fingers. And then put it back in there. You're going to see a little bit of wax coming out the sides. That's fine. The important thing is don't get it inside the hole. And then when it stops being finger tight, I just get this little wrench here, find my slot, and I just very, very carefully turn it till I feel the least little bit of resistance. And as soon as I do, I'm done. And then I heat it again. Now my wax is sealed, my piece is back on. This is very, very easy to over tighten and screw it up. So let me just wipe it clean now, because I don't want all that black stuff around it from the burning. And as I clean that, I spin it and pull it away so that the wax doesn't get in the hole. Then, what do? I very carefully put the hose from the air can in there, hold it firm, give it a shot, and make sure it's clean. Then I turn the airbrush like so, put that on, and this goes on. Careful not to damage the tip as you do it, and that's why I hold it up so it can't, slant or anything. And then I just finger tighten it. Oops, you know what I forgot? Sorry guys, I did it again. I gotta make my wax booger. Didn't do it. Get some more wax, get my wax booger started. Here we are. Get a little more than that though. I want a big booger, I want a big snotty one. There we go. Get myself a little wax booger in there. And I melt it on, melt it in. Not enough to burn your fingers, but enough to make the wax soft. Start spinning. And then, part way down, I don't know if this is necessary, it's just something I do. I make another one. And I get it in there, because I think as much of this stuff gets pushed out as it stays threaded in there, so you always want a good seal, you know what I mean? And good seal, good tight seal is going to help you. So then I screw that on. I'm going to do a little more wax work while I push pause so I don't tie you up. Okay, now you notice I started threading before putting the wax on. Some people put the wax on first, and here's really why I don't do that. If you can see it right here, a little bit of wax got in here, and that's going to cause you problems because that's going to melt in and block your holes. And that's why I always do my wax after I've started threading. That prevents me from getting in that mess. So I'm going to get this on there, and I'm going to put my wax in there. Now I'm going to light it and make it a little hot. Not burning hot, but enough to get that wax soft. Roll it in there. Heat it a little bit again. You're going to lose a little bit. Not all of it's going to get in the thread. Some's just going to get pushed out. And there we are. You see it's little bits getting pushed out right here. There's a toothpick right there. That's normal. The big thing is you get most of it in the threads. And I'm going to heat it one more time. And that takes care of that. Sorry for all this pausing, folks, but I've really got bad allergies and I have to keep pausing to get that nose cleaned out. There's not a whole lot that blooms out here in hell's armpit, but what does really gets me. Then this crown cap, which I just dropped like a clumsy oaf. This crown cap, I don't use anything on the threads in this because I remove it a lot so I can get up close when I'm doing fine work. So I just put this on barely finger tight. And then next thing that goes in is going to be the trigger. And this is one of the very few places, actually there's only 2 places I do this. A lot of people think you have to oil your needle and oil your threads and do all these things. You really don't. But I do put just a tiniest, not even a drop, just like a half drop in here to help the needle slide through there a little better. Then I turn it upwards like this. And this is the tricky part. You got to find that little hole. Let me get my flashlight so I can show you this. You can probably see that little hole down in there, right there. That little hole in the middle, right here. Getting this bottom of the trigger seat down in there is a little more of a challenge than you think. So what I do is I just hang the hang the trigger straight down, and then I just move the airbrush to help it find its seat. And it's never easy, ever. The very important thing is you make sure that the slot is like this, because if you turn it the wrong way like this, you're going to block the needle and bend it when you're trying to shove it in there. So I'm going to feel around by moving the airbrush, and that seems to be where it is. All right, let me get off camera for just a second while I get the next thing ready. And that's going to be this little guy here. And I do put a drop. This is the second place I put it, right here. You'll see on the top right there, I put a little half drop there. That just makes this thing move back and forth easier across the trigger. It goes upwards like this, and I tilt it like this to get it in easier. And I slide it up gently. Now, the spring goes over here, like so. You can put something on the threads here. I don't. I just turn it finger tight. Good enough for me. Now you guys using master airbrushes, turning that all the way on certain models, it's going to mess it up. I just gave up on those things. There it is. And then what I do is I go ahead and I put this on one twist. Just something I do. It helps me guide the needle in there better. And then gently run the needle in here, like so. Now the needle is seated. This is where people bend or mess up their airbrush, right here. Remember I told you about that little nozzle and the needle fits inside it like so? It's the last place the needle goes. People will shove it in there, okay, and it's done. But they'll keep pushing, and it'll push through here and bend the thing when it forces it open. So what I do is I just put against the meat of my index finger so it's not moving. I'm not pushing on it, I'm just holding it from moving back. And then I thread this closed. We can get to the test in a little while. Then another place people break their airbrushes is they don't put the back on. No, you don't have to, but I suggest you do, because I liked the way it felt not having it on there and all this stuff until I dropped an airbrush, and like a cat on its feet, guess how it landed? Just like so, which did what? Pushed the needle right through the front and just totally ruined my airbrush. So I'll go ahead and I put this on next. Then my last step is careful to make sure I still have my seal in here. I don't put anything in here. Air's going through here. It's got to be pure. I don't put any oil, no wax, nothing. I just put this in here, and that rubber, as you tighten it, should expand sufficiently to keep it tight. And then what I do is I put a little bit of alcohol in here. Then I hook up my airbrush to the hose. If I can get the hose. Turn on my compressor. I hear nothing out of here. It means I got it good and tight. And then I just push air. And you see, I don't know if you can see it, but already, you might be able to see if my hand's there. Anyway, let me do this. You can already see there's something coming out of there. So my needle's not quite tight enough. So what I'll do is take the back off again, loosen this up. This time just push a little bit while tightening it. Protect it again. Now I see nothing coming out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get something that's going to stick out really good, like a sheet of paper here. And I'm going to do a test shot. So I see where something's coming out, it turns yellow. Nothing is coming out now at all. And then I just do a test shot. And it's going nicely. That's perfect like I want it. Okay. This airbrush is clean. All that's left now is to wipe the exterior really clean, and that's more a matter of personal preference. I like my tools clean, whether it's socket wrenches, screwdrivers, airbrush, rifles, anything. I like my tools clean. So I'm going to clean this outside of this thing, particularly up here where I got all the scorch marks from the lighter, and this is done. So is it necessary to do all that? Yes, it is. Is it a pain? Darn tootin' it's a pain. That's why I only do it once a year, and the best way to avoid having to do it any more often is to keep good thinning ratios like I told you about in part 1, and do the in-between color cleaning like I showed you in part 1. I use these airbrushes a lot, and I only have to do it once a year, and you can see while it was dirty, it was still shooting paint, it was still versatile, but I can see when it's starting to get to that point. So if you want your brush to last a long time, that's very important to do this. But you're going to hurt yourself equally by doing it too often, because things wear out, you know, accidents happen, you know, things like that. So don't do it unless you really need to. And you will really need to. But again, you're going to need to do it a lot less if you thin properly and you clean between colors. So that's it for the Iwata. That's part 2. Let's talk about the Badger brushes in part 3.